Welcome to the Digital Marketing Insights podcast, brought to you by Brightside Digital.
Hi everyone, welcome to the show. I'm delighted to say I have Jamie here, the owner of Red Pick Media. Jamie, how are you doing?
Doing great, mate. Thank you so much for having me on.
You're very welcome. Jamie, let's start off the show. As always, can you tell our audience a little bit about yourself, please?
Yeah, sure. So, Jamie Costello, I'm the owner of Red Pick Media. We are a lead generation agency now in the fitness industry. So we scale up gyms, online coaches through an automated system using paid advertising that pretty much takes all the pain and effort away from them, allows them to kind of focus on their own business and scale up using some pretty savvy digital marketing. That's our business. Wasn't always like that. We did start off as a very general agency. We're pretty new. It's a COVID business, so it started off from necessity. When a couple of travel plans went awry, I've worked in marketing for years and years. Not years and years. I'm not old and grey or anything yet. I'm still in my 20s, but I've always worked in marketing. And decided to pack it in 2020 and go traveling for a year or two. And just when my plane was about to take off, all planes were grounded. So rather than going back to kind of the roles that I were in, I just thought it was the best opportunity to actually start my own business. And a marketing agency made sense. And I'm sure kind of, as you know, or as your listeners know, when you start off and you're on your own and you're a glorified freelancer, you're all things to all people. You'll take any work that comes your way, and it works for a little while until you can't scale a system like that. And that's what we did at the start. We had, 6 or 7 different services, from SEO to paid ads to organic social to videography, photography, graphic design, web design. We were just doing way too many things for way too many different industries, way too many different types of clients. And it just came to a point where, it made sense to actually scale back, start saying no to some things, and just start to get really, really good at one thing. And that was, for us, paid advertising into funnel building, into scaling fitness businesses. So that's what we ended up doing. And that's how we've actually scaled pretty nicely over the last year and a half in that area. Myself, I'm 28-year-old. I'm from Galway. I've studied in UIG. I've studied in New York for a brief stint. And like I said, always worked in marketing. So relatively new to growing my own business, but thankfully all is going well.
So, Jamie, what would you see is your main strength at the moment in digital?
Yeah, so our main strength is paid advertising. But I suppose it doesn't stop there. If your advertising stops at the advertising point, it's not really going to be very good. So it's what happens after there that is also our strength. So we have built out a CRM that's basically an automated system for our clients that our advertising runs into. So we run ads to funnels that we know convert highly. And from there, all the leads that go through that funnel are put into a certain pipeline. They're followed up with automatically through SMS, through email, and basically funneled into the point where, for our clients, they're either showing up to the gym or they're showing up to a sales consultation if it's an online coach, something like that. So our main strength is obviously advertising into kind of funnel building, funnel hacking, and all the tracking, analytics, and kind of data and insight that you can pull from doing stuff like that. So that's definitely where our strength is at the moment. That's pretty much all we're doing at the moment.
That's brilliant. And to kind of dive into all those different areas, when you say paid, do you mean Google, Facebook, those kind of paid centers, or something else?
Yeah, it's a good question. We have tested dozens of different advertising platforms, strategies, everything. And I think there is a place for everything. For us, in terms of profitability for the client, Facebook and Instagram ads still come out on top. So that's what we lean into the most. There are places and times that we run Google ads for clients as well, but we just lean into what works best for the client every time. And still, that is Facebook and Instagram ads. So a couple of different types of ads that we would run there. Funnily enough, feed ads still work the best on Facebook, and Instagram story ads are the ones that we would always go with. But we're a lead gen agency, so advertising and lead gen, it's not as complicated as ecom. So it's relatively kind of simple stuff. It's simple ads. They're the ones that tend to work best. Nothing overly complicated. But like I said, for us, it's getting somebody to land on our funnel page where all the good stuff happens. People get caught up with advertising a lot and think that your advert has to sell your product or service. It doesn't. Your ad has one job, and that's to sell a click. And then your funnel page has one job, and that's to sell a submission or to sell a form submission or to do something else in terms of a call to action. Selling your product or service, at least for our clients, happens when the person is either in the gym or on the sales call with a client. So people get caught up with advertising a lot. The job of an advert, it has one job, and that's to sell a click. It's what happens after that, where all the fun part starts, I guess, and where a lot of the really important stuff can happen as well. So that's where we are.
Brilliant. And in terms of lead gen, then, is there anything you lean on for those appointment bookings or those kind of softwares? Is there anything that you suggest for your clients or anything you work with?
Yeah, I mean, we're a lead gen agency, and obviously we do that for our clients, but we also do a huge amount of it for ourselves. And I think any business should, because especially in the agency area, if you're an agency owner that struggles to get bookings, you will obviously struggle to get business. Appointments means sales calls, means new clients, basically is how it works. So there's a lot of different stuff we do. For us, for our agency, we do a huge amount of cold email, but we do it very, very well. We use a couple of different softwares, I guess, in that outreach effort. So we use Loom a lot, which is your video recording software that you can embed onto your email. You can also embed it as a GIF, so a little moving image that goes into our outreach emails. And without getting too far into it, we run some very, very customized outreach emails that are done at scale. So it's a pretty big operation, but Loom is behind a huge amount of that. And then obviously all the tracking and stuff we pretty much do manually. We don't use any sort of automation software for email, because it's just going to ruin your deliverability. Google picks up on it too fast. So it is a bit of a manual process, but there are ways of getting savvy with it to scale it up. And it can be done through, we use a lot of virtual assistants, stuff like that can basically blast this stuff out at a very customized level, like I said, at mass. So we use Loom a lot. Other sort of stuff that we would use, we do a lot of outreach on Instagram. It's where a lot of our target market will lie. And that's just one thing that you need to figure out when you're talking about lead gen is where to find the guys that you're going after, how to speak to them in the way that they want to be spoken to, how you can do it at mass, and how you can track everything in terms of figuring out what's working and what's not working. So we run tests, every single month in terms of the copy that we're using, the Loom that we're using, the script that we're using, the outreach method, just to try and figure out which one really is working the best. So I suppose they're the only softwares that we're using for outreach. But yeah, like I said, I wouldn't recommend using any sort of automation software for email, just because your deliverability is going to go through the floor.
Yeah, really well said. And in terms of your reporting, is there any particular softwares you use to report back at the end of the day?
Yeah, so again, very good question. It depends what we're reporting on. But again, all of our reporting will be done manually. It's not a huge task. If you have, your Google Sheets or your Excel sheets formatted and laid out, it's very, very easy to do it. So we will do it for ourselves. We will do it for all of our clients. So any client that we have gets all the reporting done for them. So we can find out, let's say in terms of advertising, ad spend, impressions, reach, clicks, leads, sessions booked, trial started, show ups, no shows, units sold, lifetime value, cash taken. What happens when you track every single one of those things individually is you start to see where the bottlenecks are in your outreach methods, right? So if your clicks aren't there, it's an issue with your ads. If your leads aren't there, but your clicks are, it's an issue with your landing page. If your show-ups aren't there, your follow-up isn't working. So that's what happens when you can get that detailed into your tracking. And that's probably the reason we do it all manually as well. We just can't leave that type of thing up to chance, because for us, it's actually what makes us stand out a lot as an agency, because we've worked with a lot of clients that have worked with other agencies, and that level of detail just isn't there. And when it's not there, you don't know what's working. And if you can't take out every single variable and look at it on its own, you're not going to know which one changes. And a lot of people will start to change a couple of different variables at the same time. So they'll change their ad copy, and they'll change their image, and they'll change the funnel page, and they'll see their leads go up. But now you don't know what has made that change happen, because you've changed a couple of different things at a time. So we just use the scientific approach of using testing and retesting, but changing one variable at a time. And that's how you start to see what works. So again, we just do it all manually. We do it through sheets. Obviously, we use Facebook's ad manager to try and track a lot of stuff. But I'm sure, as everybody knows, listening to this, that's not the most accurate reporting method at the moment. So look, there's other things, Google Analytics, Tag Manager, stuff like that we use. But really what it breaks down to is knowing your variables, being able to track them all. And like I said, we just do it manually, so we make sure that we get it right.
Really well said. And the way you kind of broke that down between clicks, leads, follow up, it's all straightforward stuff. And you're right, it's amazing how many businesses overlook these kind of factors and like you say, change up everything. Jamie, in terms of yourself, is there any particular areas you're looking to upskill into, and why?
Yeah, good question again. So for myself, it's actually trying to get better at management and people management, hiring, because I suppose, like we've mentioned, when you start off on your own, that's not an issue, and you can get very, very good at what you do. But to scale a business, I think any business that scales is not scaling their product or their service. Any business that tries to scale has to become almost like HR business or a hiring business. You have to get good at that. You have to be able to teach somebody else to do what you know how to do. And that becomes very hard, right? Because you can train a VA or somebody like that to do a very specific job that can be done kind of over and over again. But when you start to scale a business, you have to start hiring people and teaching them how to use critical thinking and making their own decisions and being able to put them in front of your clients, and being confident that they can deliver as well. So for myself, growing a business, it's trying to upskill in that area of management, hiring, and understanding, communication between people. And I think, yeah, it's a tough one. I think it's a hard one to learn without actually doing it. It's like learning to swim by reading a book. I think you actually just have to start getting out there, hiring people, maybe making mistakes and failing fast, and moving on to the next test. But for me, for our business at the moment, that's kind of where I think we need to get better at. Otherwise, it's hard to scale. Unless you can put the right people in the right places, you're going to be trading your own time for money, time and time again. And if you continue to do that, there's no scale there. You'll just have a job, not a business. So for me, that's one area that I'm really trying to figure out, really trying to get a little bit better at. Because, yeah, like I said, to scale a business, I think that's one of the most important parts.
That's it. And I think a lot of us that have been in the industry quite a while, we're built on a lot of our failures and overspend here or a mistake here or a copy mistake here. And even though when you're training new members of staff and you're trying to teach them your mistakes, there has to be an area for them to make their own mistakes and embrace failure and work with it as much as you can help. I suppose you have to earn those stripes, don't you?
Like 100%. Yeah, I mean, you're absolutely spot on with that. I think an area when I talk again about, let's say, hiring and training, is training somebody's mindset to accept the failure, right? Because I see failure as a very, very good thing. We do a lot of outreach, like I said. If somebody gets back to me and says, stop emailing me, leave us alone, somebody that is emotional about business could really take that to heart. Whereas for me and for us, that's a good sign. That means we don't have to follow up that person anymore, and we can move on to the next one. So it's just learning to accept the failure, I guess, and see it as a good thing. That I think is extremely important. I heard someone say something quite good the other day, that when you find yourself saying something negative, to say 9 positive things about the same thing. Okay, so um, yeah, it's just learning to actually see failures as a positive. That I think gets very, very important. And if you can train your staff to do the same thing within reason, um, I think you'll end up with a pretty dynamic staff that can think critically and think laterally and solve problems and kind of move on without the emotional side. Because once you start getting emotions involved, it's you're on a race to the bottom, essentially.
Exactly. And Jamie, looking at the digital industry as a whole, is there anything that really excites you that's coming maybe in the future?
It's an interesting one. You know what I mean? It is an interesting one. I think for any advertising agency out there, it's going to be whether or not this metaverse thing really really takes off, and what is advertising going to look like there. Um, that's going to be a very, very interesting one. I don't know enough about it to say if it's really going to take off to the point where Meta or Facebook is saying that it will. If it does, it'll be a very, very interesting space to advertise in. I have no idea what that's going to look like. The other area, I suppose, for me that is actually exciting is online education, course building, um, people selling online courses. I mean, obviously, it's skyrocketed. And I just think that it's very exciting because I think it's the right way to go in terms of education. Um, I was always like very entrepreneurial when I was a very small kid. You know, I started off, my first business was selling burned CDs, right? In school, my older brother learned how to burn CDs. So my thing was, right, take an audit, take a stock take of every CD we have in the house, and then bring that list to school and sell burned CDs to my friends. Um, that stopped pretty quickly when I sold a copy of 50 Cents Get Rich or Die Trying to the wrong kid, and his parents heard it. But I always found that going through standard traditional education kind of dampened my creativity a little bit. You learn how to be an employee. Um, and I think the rise of kind of online education and being able to get specific, to learn a topic that you really want to learn and become an expert in one thing is huge. You know what I mean? It's absolutely huge. Being You're never going to earn as much as a generalist as you are as somebody that's specific in what they do. Um, a brain surgeon earns an awful lot more than a general practitioner. If you can get specific, if you can learn things um, in detail on a topic, you can charge a lot more money. So the rise of this kind of online education and selling courses and selling platforms, or selling online courses, I think is very, very interesting. It's something that I do want to get into in terms of building a course that could potentially help my clients um, use it as an upsell, um, and just provide a lot more value. So I think that's huge. I really, really do. I've done some amazing courses myself. For anybody that's kind of listening to this that is an agency owner, there is a course out there that has helped me scale rapidly. And just a simple plug, it's the Imperium Agency Incubator. The guys are amazing. Helped us scale, but again, it's an online course that's very specific, very targeted to one thing, and it's helping you grow your agency. So that's something that excites me a lot, and I think it's something that's going to continue to grow.
And lastly, Jamie, you've touched on yourself a little bit there, but we always try and understand the people behind these businesses and roles. If you could bottle up one personality trait that you have that you would love to be able to pass on to others, what would it be?
Yeah, it's a good question, and it's an easy one for me, and it's work ethic. It's 100%, I believe, the most important trait that I have, that I think was passed to me by my parents. Um, like I've called my business called Red Pick Media, named after my dad's red pickup truck, which was kind of a piece of crap, but never actually gave up on him. Never stopped working every single morning. Brought him to work, and my parents are two of the hardest working people I know. So work ethic was passed down to me, but I think it is probably one of the most important things that you can have if you're trying to grow a business. And it breaks down into a couple of different things. It's consistency, it's drive, it's it's a couple of different things. But without it, I think you're not going to get anywhere, because again, you'll probably get emotional, or you'll have motivation for a little while, and your motivation will dip, as motivation does. And if you don't have consistency, and if you don't have a goal, So you obviously need a goal to orient yourself towards, because when your motivation eventually does dip, without a goal, you have nothing to orient yourself towards. So, he with, what is that saying? He with a big enough why can bear any how. So if you have a goal, that's part of what your work ethic can be based off of. If you have consistency, knowing that you should be making work the goal, making good work the goal, and if you make good work the goal every single day and stay consistent at that, you'll eventually reach your capital G goal. So if you make
Really
good
well
work
said.
the small G goal, and make your main goal the capital G goal, consistency, work ethic, drive, will eventually get you there.
Jamie, what a brilliant way to end the show. Thank you so much for being on the show. Definitely, anyone listening, check out Red Pick Media. And yeah, first and foremost, I'd like to say thank you from everyone. Thank you very much for sharing your insights.
Not at all. Thanks for having me, mate.